The best things in life are worth waiting for, and it's about damn time that Sean McVay started telling the truth about the trade with Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford. We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned. We used to be a team no one respected. We used to be a team no one feared. That was then. This is now.
First victory of the year on the line. Goff's got it. Back, looks, throws, end zone. Yes! Caught!
You know who we are.
10-5, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions.
And you know where to find us. We won't be far. We'll be on your front porch waiting for you. We are the New Era Lions. And
we are driven by Detroit.
hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving in. But before we get into it, I just want to say to my subscribers that are coming back, my loyal fans, my loyal subscribers, thank you all for coming back. Thank you all for your view, your support, and your patronage. Absolutely means the world to me that I have such loyal viewers and subscribers. And to those that are tuning into my show for the very first time, I just want to say thank you all for giving my show a shot. I hope you all enjoy the content, and if you do, I also hope to gain you as a subscriber if I've earned and deserved it. But with that being said, to everybody, I just want to say, God bless. I hope you'll have a great day. And with that, let's get into the show. So, here's the thing, folks. This week is literally going to be mostly centered on Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, Rams, Lions. You know, that's the whole primary narrative. That's getting put right back into the limelight, put right back into the spotlight. So I know for some people, this is a conversation they would just wish you could move past for. But unfortunately, this is what's going to be the media frenzy. This is going to be what's the media circus. And to be quite frankly honest, as weird as this is going to sound, this almost has the same kind of vibe as if the quarterbacks were kind of going against each other in a Super Bowl mindset, because that's how much we're talking about Goff and Stafford. But the thing is, we're not talking about them in a typical sense. We're talking about them because of what connects them together, what connects the Rams and the Lions together, their commonality. And that's the one particular thing that has been the center point, the focal point of this whole week. That's the trade that made this whole thing happen. Goff being sent to Detroit, Stafford being sent to LA. Now, we all know that trade was a blockbuster trade, and let's be fair and honest, it's considered not only one of the largest trades that's been pulled off in the NFL, but it's also been considered one of the biggest franchise-altering trades in NFL history because of what it has done to the two franchises that have been involved on both sides. But like I said, at the center of the trade are the quarterbacks, Goff, Stafford. But when you take a look at those two quarterbacks, obviously the first thing that everyone's going to start talking about is the narrative, the story, the kind of ideology that centers around that whole discussion point. Well, if you're talking about those two quarterbacks, let's talk about it. What's the narrative? What's the storyline around Matthew Stafford? Well, let's think about it. What was the whole point of Stafford coming to LA? The whole point of Stafford coming to LA was that he was a talented quarterback that was looking for success. He was tired of being stunted in terms of success here in Detroit because of, managerial errors, whether it was because of ownership problems, whether it was because the roster could never be built. He was tired of the ineptitude and didn't want to go through another rebuild, so he wanted to get a chance to go out and win. The Lions happily obliged him. They gave him the best opportunity to do that, and the LA Rams, they came a knocking. So that's what is the story for Matthew Stafford. Well, what's the story for Goff? For Stafford, pretty much everybody looking at him like, okay, he had pretty much taken his lumps in Detroit, now he's getting his. The exact opposite was true for Jared Goff. He was blamed for everything that happened with his previous team with the LA Rams. He was blamed because he was deemed as not being good enough to get the Rams over the hump to win a Super Bowl. He was blamed for the fact that, that he was for all of McVay and the Rams shortcomings. Like everything that was about the Rams failing was attributed to Jared Goff. Pretty much nothing else came up with the fact of the Rams failures other than the fact It's connected to Jared Goff. Has nothing to do with the coaching, has nothing to do with the rest of the roster. It's all on Jared Goff. And then from there, that's where all the common stereotypes that have plagued Jared Goff for the last, 3, 4, 5 years have started to come about. The fact that, Jared Goff can't throw a ball deep. He's a noodle arm quarterback. He's a bridge quarterback. He's not good enough to be a starter, but he's good enough to hang around for a little bit. He doesn't throw a tight spiral. He's got wobbly throws. He's immobile. He's a statue. He doesn't have the ability to extend plays. He can't improvise. The fact that he fails under pressure, and just all of these other ridiculous notions and stereotypes and nonsensical ideas that have not only been disproven by me, but disproven by Brad Holmes and other people that have talked about this whole thing. But when we're taking a look at the narrative that surrounds these two particular players, you have to ask yourself the question, why is it that for Stafford's side of the story, it was so damn accurate, it was still considered true, and everything about it made sense, but yet at the center of everything for Jared Goff, it was illogical, inaccurate, unreasonable, and just pretty much a total fallacy. Well, you have to understand how this whole narrative got started. You have to take a look at it, because at the center of that whole narrative was what the media was pushing and what the media was buying was that the belief was Sean McVay was infallible. The belief that Goff had failed McVay rather than McVay had failed Goff. Because again, it goes back to the thought process that everything that was wrong with the Rams, everything that was failing the Rams was attributed directly to Goff's shortcomings and nobody else. There was nobody else being talked about as the reason why the Rams were not succeeding other than the fact that Goff simply just couldn't get the mustard done. And that narrative was that McVay had propped up Goff, that McVay had made Goff better than what he was, and that in essence, McVay had taken Goff as far as he could. At this point, it was like, listen, I've done all I can with Goff. He's just not going to get us any further, because that was what was being perpetuated in the media. And here's the thing. That whole narrative was literally being spun like Charlotte's Web, just like everybody was buying it up, everybody was selling it, everybody was saying this is the story, this is the truth. But you have to think about it. While Goff was taking all the lumps from that narrative, who was basking in the limelight, who was basking in the spotlight from the opposite end of the media? Oh, that's right. That would be Sean McVay. Because think about it. Sean McVay, he goes and wins a Super Bowl. He gets all of that limelight. He gets all of that praise. And he's finally being acknowledged as the best young head coach in the NFL over Shanahan of the 49ers. He's being told of his genius as a play caller. He's being told of how talented he is as a coach, how brilliant he is as a coach. And all the while, Sean McVay is forgetting about Goff, because why would he not think about Goff? Hey, he's winning the Super Bowl. He's got all the success in the world. He's on top of the world. Until certain things, certain events started happening to where McVay had to address the narrative and had to start kind of changing it because it no longer made much sense. And this is where we're going to really start diving into today's episode. So, first and foremost, let's think about this really quickly here. If you go back to around late June, early July of 2022, so just before we started the season last year, McVay comes out in an interview and he actually admits that he handled the Stafford-Goff trade incorrectly, that he handled it wrong, and that he expressed regret about how he went about it. And there were certain things that McVay specifically said about that whole thing, specifically about how he didn't tell Goff about the impending trade, or the talks that were happening with him and Stafford and the Lions about potentially making that trade work. And in essence, blindsiding Goff with the whole trade and pretty much just dropping the bombshell in his lap and just pretty much saying, oh yeah, you're getting traded to Detroit. Sorry, best of luck to you. That's pretty much what McVay was saying, is that he didn't handle the trade very well and that he regretted how he did it. Well, here comes my thought process. What prompted that whole story? Because it's not like McVay just decided one day to wake up and say, oh, mea culpa, I'm sorry. We have to think about what spawned that whole admission. Here's where this comes into play. If you go back to the last 6 or so weeks that Jared Goff had played in 2021, take a look at how Jared Goff played in those last 6 weeks, which was also, coincidentally, I think the Lions went, 3-2-1 under Goff during that period of time, when the Lions were considered one of the worst teams in the NFL up until they started winning. Take a look at what Jared Goff did in those last 6 games that he played. He was 126 of 186 for 67.7 completion percent, 1,250 yards, 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions with a 101.8 passer rating. And if you take a look at those stats, you go back to that period of time, over the last month and a half to 2 months, so the last 6 or so weeks, like I'm saying, Jared Goff was the 3rd best quarterback in the league statistically. If I recall correctly, the only 2 guys he was behind was probably Joe Burrow and Aaron Rodgers, if I recall correctly, at the time. So if you think about it, Jared Goff had gotten that offense and was playing at a top level with virtually very little. Because again, you go back to the end of 2021, Amon-Ra St. Brown had started to emerge. He had just gotten Josh Reynolds, and on top of that, he had TJ Hawkinson still at the time. So Goff had some weapons, but again, it wasn't like what Goff has right now. But yet Goff was playing amongst the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. Actually, like I said, top 3. So if you think about it, Goff's great play at the end of 2021, plus all of the stuff that was starting to come out of training camp at that time in 2022 about how Ben Johnson and the offense that Jared Goff and him had put together was really starting to take off in training camp, and it was looking like he was going to have a really, really good year under Ben Johnson. That, to me, forced Sean McVay to have to change the narrative, because it's like, well, maybe the way I went about it was probably not the best way to do it. Because it's like, listen, I find it kind of interesting that how a year later, you're now coming out and saying, well, yeah, it wasn't my finest hour. I'm sorry about how I handled it. That to me is like, well, why did you wait so long to decide to say, I'm sorry, I regret what I did? That to me just seems a little bit weird, especially when you just won the Super Bowl. So what exactly prompted you to come out and say that? The only thing I can figure is that, Goff actually looked good over the last 6 weeks, which already started the last six weeks of 2021, which started to challenge the idea that, well, Goff can't win without McVay. Goff's no good without McVay. So it already was starting to challenge that notion. It was starting to challenge that narrative. But then again, now we get to this point here. McVay has come out even further. And this is where we get to the ultimate point of this episode. McVay came out further and further pleads mea culpa just yesterday. He said that what he's saying is that Jared Goff deserved better from what happened from that trade, and that he has gained a further appreciation for Jared Goff as time has gone by. Wait a minute here. Time out. So you're saying that Jared Goff deserved better from you, and that you have further gained appreciation of him since since you pretty much forcibly exiled him, is in essence what you did. You pretty much just said, hey, I don't want you anymore, I'm just getting rid of you. So in essence, what Sean McVay is saying, without directly saying it, is that he was wrong not only in how he handled the Goff trade, but he was also wrong in how he treated Jared Goff in general. Because I'm not going to forget about that. We heard all of the reports from reporters and all people that had inside access to that locker room about how there were times after games McVay just berated the hell out of Goff and pretty much put him on the center stage and said, you screwed up. It's like, listen, I'm not going to forget about those reports. That right there is an embarrassment to the player. That right there is putting your player on the spot and pretty much blaming them. So you're saying you were wrong in how you handled the trade and you were wrong in how you treated Goff. But then you furthermore say that you've grown to appreciate Goff more since you traded him away. Well, here's what I'm going to furthermore say about that. What you're admitting, Sean McVay, in a roundabout way, is that you didn't appreciate him enough when you had him. So it's like, wait a minute here. You didn't treat him well when you had him, you didn't treat him well when you traded him, and you didn't appreciate him when you had him. But yet now, it sounds like you're kind of saying, well, again, I was wrong in how I approached him, I was wrong in how I handled him, I was wrong because I didn't appreciate him. So again, why are you saying this now? Why are you all of a sudden coming out and saying all of this stuff? And I also have to ask myself and wonder this question. I wonder how long Jared Goff has had to wait to hear all of these things. Because again, say what you want about Sean McVay, but Sean McVay doesn't normally say, oh, my bad. I don't care what anyone says, especially when it comes to Jared Goff. When it comes to Jared Goff, Sean McVay, until very, very recently, has not exactly been the most positive about his ex-quarterback. So it, to me, is like, this is rather peculiar. It begs me to ask the question, why? Now we get to the point where I really want to further kind of drive this nail into the coffin. Again, let's go back to what I was talking about with the 2022 admission just after the 2021 season. Well, think about this, folks. If we're talking about right now, on the eve of the Lions-Rams playoff game, think about what Jared Goff has done since the last admission that Sean McVay had made. He was voted number 66, if I recall correctly, on the NFL Top 100, which is a list that is voted on by other NFL players. So that right there tells Sean McVay that the players respect Jared Goff's talent, which is something that the original narrative pretty much said was not there. Jared Goff is now tied third in NFL history for the longest interception-less streak, if you want to call it that, or the longest streak without interception thrown in NFL history with 383 throws. He has the second most passing yards since 2022 with just a little over 9,000. He has the fourth most passing touchdowns since 2022 with 59. He has the fourth highest passer rating since 2022 with 98.6. And he has the lowest interception rate of all quarterbacks as well. And those other stats are out of all quarterbacks since 2022 with a 1.6 interception rate. He also has a division title for the Detroit Lions, something that has not happened in 30 years. He has a home playoff game that he has given the Lions, something that has not happened in 30 years. And he has accomplished two things that, again, are so rare in NFL history that one has only happened one other time and one had not happened until Jared Goff helped facilitate it. And this is what they were. Having 4 players of 10 touchdowns or more. The only other time in NFL history that had happened was the 2013 Broncos. And then 4 players with 10 plus touchdowns or more and 850 plus scrimmage yards or more. The Lions are the only team in NFL history to accomplish both of those in the same season. That shows just how damn good Jared Goff has been the last 2 years here in Detroit. And what it does, it completely obliterates and just completely smashes all of that narrative bull crap that had come out about Jared Goff after the trade that pretty much centered on, again, Sean McVay was infallible. Sean McVay could do no wrong. Sean McVay was not the problem with the Rams. It was all on Jared Goff. So again, what it does is it again calls into question here, okay, if that narrative was wrong, what was the other narrative that I was talking about with Matthew Stafford? The other parts of that narrative that I didn't talk about at the beginning of the episode was the Rams were looking for a quarterback to get them over the hump that supposedly Jared Goff could never do. But here's the problem though. Again, if you take a look at the stats, that again has been completely disproven. Because again, compare the two quarterbacks, if you will, since that trade happened in 2021. Compare them statistically. If you take a look at Jared Goff since the trade in 2021, 1,121 completions to 1,686 attempts. 66.5 completion percentage rate, just a little over 12,000 yards, 78 touchdowns, 27 interceptions, 96.5 passer rating. Take a look at Stafford on the other hand, since he's been traded to the Rams. 936 completions to 1,425 attempts. 65.7 completion percentage rate. 10,938 yards. 75 touchdowns to 36 interceptions with a 95.8 passer rating. I'm just going to put it out there very plainly obvious. The quarterbacks are pretty much producing at the exact same damn level. The only thing that really kind of sticks out between the two is that Goff has thrown a significantly less amount of interceptions in comparison. He's thrown 9 less interceptions, but yet Jared Goff has a better passer rating, he has more passing yards, he has a better pass completion percentage rate, and both of them have the same amount of wins at 24. So here comes my question. So if Goff and Stafford have virtually the exact same stats, Goff slightly a little bit better, so if that's over the last 3 years, how exactly has Stafford performed supposedly better to get the Rams over the hump that Jared Goff couldn't do? Because that whole narrative to me is completely disproven when you further consider this. When Jared Goff went to his Super Bowl, who did Jared Goff not have in the lineup with him when he played arguably the greatest Super Bowl winning dynasty in NFL history? He didn't have Cooper Kupp in the lineup. Cooper Kupp was injured. He didn't have OBJ, wasn't on the team. Didn't have Von Miller, wasn't on the team. Didn't have Jalen Ramsey, wasn't on the team. Didn't have Eric Weddle, wasn't on the team. Didn't have Leonard Floyd, wasn't on the team. Now, I know Goff detractors, Goff haters are still going to try and say, well, David, he did have Ndamukong Suh. He did have Aqib Talib. Time out here. Ndamukong Suh, great player. But you're going to honestly tell me that if you had Ndamukong Suh and Von Miller and also Aaron Donald on the same defense, that wouldn't have made a difference? Try again, my friend. And if you're going to try and tell me that Aqib Talib is a better cornerback than Jalen Ramsey, I would laugh directly in your face. Plus, on top of that, you have all the other stuff that Jared Goff didn't have. Jared Goff didn't have an OBJ to throw to. Even though OBJ only played for 2 quarters or so in Stafford's Super Bowl, that's 2 quarters more than Goff got. That's my whole point. But then again, like I also stated here, you're wanting to talk about and compare Jared Goff's Super Bowl to Matthew Stafford's Super Bowl. Consider the opponents that Goff and Stafford played against. Goff played against, like I said, the greatest Super Bowl dynasty in the last, I'm just going to say the entirety of the NFL, because no team has won more Super Bowls in a period of time than what the Patriots did. By the time the Rams had played the Patriots in 2018 for that Super Bowl, the Patriots had already won 5 Super Bowls and had won 29 playoff games prior to that. They were literally loaded to the brim with experience. They were the best team that was pretty much going into that Super Bowl, bar none. They had Bill Belichick, who is considered arguably one of the best coaches of all time, Tom Brady, who's considered the greatest quarterback of all time, and a team that's loaded to bear with experienced players in the playoffs. Versus Matthew Stafford, whose opponent was the upstart Cincinnati Bengals, who, since the same time that the Patriots pretty much got started winning Super Bowls, no Super Bowl wins, and only had 3 playoff wins by the time they got to play the Rams. Which, those 3 playoff wins were the same 3 wins that they had in the same season to get to the Super Bowl, because they won in the wild card round, the division round, and also in the conference round. So, but if you take a look prior to all of that, 0-7. So who really had the better odds to win their Super Bowl based on the amount of talent that they had, based upon the opponent that they had? Matthew Stafford. So if Matthew Stafford was brought in to get them over the hump, and yet he had a lesser quality opponent, more weapons, and has performed at virtually the same level as Jared Goff, then pretty much what Sean McVay has proven is that the whole narrative that surrounded him as being not the reason why the Rams couldn't win in the first place with Jared Goff was completely a lie. Now, I'm not saying that Sean McVay orchestrated the narrative, but I will say this. He sure as hell didn't do anything to dispel it until Jared Goff started playing good enough to where it challenged the narrative. That's my whole point. That's why I'm saying my title. It's about damn time that Sean McVay actually fessed up and was like, yeah, Jared Goff wasn't really the reason why we couldn't win. It was more to do about a couple of other things. Now, granted, Sean McVay hasn't actually admitted that he was part and parcel to that whole reason as well. But he has admitted, yeah, Goff wasn't really the reason. There were circumstances that were kind of beyond his control. I didn't appreciate him. I also didn't treat him very well. These are things that are now starting to come out. And it's kind of funny how it's now starting to come out when Jared Goff has now started a kind of match where Sean McVay was a couple of years ago before he won his Super Bowl. It's kind of odd how that works out. But again, very, very interesting to me that Sean McVay is now trying to correct amends when he's about to play his ex-quarterback literally in a couple of days. That's a very, very interesting note and a very interesting coincidence to me. Now, don't you think? But anyway, folks, I figured I'd make this episode because this is one topic that I've been talking about and trying to convince people for a long time. And again, I've been proven right. But with that having been said, I just want to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode that I got coming at the end of this one. I also want to highly, highly encourage y'all to please, if you subscribed in the past, you've got to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and now had a chance to do so, again, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. But also, after you subscribe, please make sure you turn on that bell notification icon as well, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out, please. I also want to encourage y'all to help in that endeavor by sharing this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. Again, the more we share it, the greater the channel does, the greater it spreads, and the greater we're able to get people into the show. And that's ultimately what we want to do. We want to have a larger audience so that way we can talk football, whether it's about the Lions, specifically about the Lions, but about anybody in general. And with that having been said, I just want to again say to everybody, thank you all for your time and attention. Thank you all for viewing the content. I hope you all enjoyed it. And I hope to have gained you as a subscriber if I had not done so already. And if you have, please, I just want to welcome you all to the MCM family. And if you still haven't subscribed, hopefully you'll come back and I'll get another chance to do so later. But until that time, I just want to say, God bless. I hope you all enjoyed the show. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.